cap hell right now and not win a division and rebuild. Who wouldn't take that? Would you take that, Z?
Totally. I mean,
yes, but here's the problem, though. Bill Belichick says that, and everybody thinks that he's making excuses. He's just telling you the truth. He's damned if he do, damned if he don't. Right? If he says it, look, Bill, you're bad. And if he doesn't say anything, he's saying Bill. He's always just. I mean, like, you can't win.
Key. That's why external expectations are different than internal expectations. And granted, I think externally, there is so much around this Pats team as it relates to expectations about what is Cam going to do. I don't think internally, obviously they always want to win championships, but I think after guys opting out with COVID, after Cam coming back, I think internally expectations have changed with this team.
There's 8 players as starters that are not on their team because
I understand
they
that.
opted out. And people have to understand that and realize you're not every single year, you can't realize, I mean, you can't just assume that a team is going to be the same after 8 guys leaves, the quarterback of 20 years, he's gone, a new guy you sign in a COVID situation at quarterback with no offseason, nothing, comes in and tries to do his best. You have no receiver. You have nothing. Like the cupboard's bare. Like you don't have anything. And he's just explaining to people 4 Super Bowls. We won 3 of them. We lost 1, and then we go to an AFC Championship game, and y'all trying to kill me because I simply say we don't have any money. We don't have any money. We sold out for 5 years. Now, and I think Mr. Kraft and then Bill Belichick will sell out for another 5 years if they need to.
That's why I said we'd have to change the expectations and change the narrative, right? They're in a rebuilding process. And that's okay considering all the success that this team has had.
That's
okay.
They are no different than any other professional franchise in sports that have great success for long periods of time and then have to shut it down for a short period of time to reboot. Now, whether or not Bill Belichick will be around for that next run as the head coach, who knows? Maybe he will coach well into his 80s or something. I don't know. But right now, they're not a good football team, and it's an opportunity for everyone that want to kick them across the street to do so.
And they may want to kick him across the street. They may want to kick a couple players out here and there. Reboot, rebuild, not words often heard around the Patriots. But obviously, as the fellas have said, these are different times. And for more on that, let's head to the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line to welcome NFL insider Dan Graziano. Dan and all the guys are working the phones. And over the course of the last few years, I can't imagine much of the calls he's taken are on the Patriots being sellers. But Dan, as we approach the deadline today, 4 p.m. Eastern, what are the Pats thinking about doing, and what are the other really big names we need to think about before it hits 4 in the East today?
Well, you look at the Patriots, right? Like, there were a lot of people around the league watching to see what happened to them on Sunday in Buffalo, and the theory being if they lose, which they did, they're 3.5 games out. They don't look like they're a very good team, and would that mean they could potentially sell off pieces at the deadline? You know, Stephon Gilmore has a couple years left on his contract, a very affordable price for an acquiring team. There are teams that are interested in knowing whether he's available, whether they'd move other veteran pieces in their secondary, like one or both of the McCourty twins, whether Joe Thuney, their offensive lineman, who's their franchise player, could be available for a team that needs help there. So definitely a team people are watching throughout the day today in terms of trying to figure out where they stand. And when you hear comments like that from Bill Belichick, it does give you a window into how the Patriots see themselves. If they see themselves as a rebuilding team and they're able to move guys that aren't going to be part of that long-term rebuilding in exchange for picks that are, then they have to consider it. So I'm watching the Patriots pretty closely today to see what they do, if anything. I think, you know, they're not going to just to move. They don't have to clear cap space or cash space. They can sort of recalibrate and go forward starting next year. But if somebody offers them enough for, say, a Stephon Gilmore to make it worth their while, I don't think anybody would be super surprised by a move like that.
Dan, how likely is it that the Green Bay Packers, who's had issues on both sides of the ball from a defensive standpoint as well as trying to get Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams some help at the receiving core, how likely is it that they make a move at some point today?
They've looked at it, Key, there's no question about it, but it's the Packers, right? I mean, in the end, they love their picks. And I don't I think it would be surprising to see Green Bay make a move to send a high draft pick in exchange for a player they're only going to have for a couple of months. Look, the name you keep hearing with them is Will Fuller, the receiver from the Texans. This guy's in the last year of his contract. If he leaves and signs elsewhere for a good deal, the Texans are going to get a third-round compensatory pick most likely. So in order to make it worth Houston's while to move him, you probably have to give a second round or better. Now you look at the Packers, the second round's pretty important for them. They got Devontae Adams in the second round. Years ago they got Jordy Nelson in the second round. The way they like to fix their receiver problem is to draft a superstar in the second round and develop him. So if they make a move, I think it would probably be smart and targeted and not an overpay for a rental player, as much as people might want to see, hey, Aaron Rodgers needs some more help than just Devontae Adams on that side of the ball.
Can the Miami Dolphins challenge the Buffalo Bills for the AFC East title?
Absolutely, man. There's no question. I said this on the show here in Get Up 2 weeks ago. Watch the Dolphins. Now, that was before I knew they were benching their veteran quarterback for the rookie, but maybe the kid can play. They didn't need to ask much of him to win that game the other day, obviously. Weird game that the defense kind of won for them, but you look at the schedule Buffalo has over the next 4 or 5 weeks, it is not easy. And their offense isn't exactly clicking at the way it was in September. So, no, I think Miami's legit. They can play a little defense. If the rookie quarterback, if Tua can play, then I think they're definitely in the mix. I'd certainly like their chances better than I like New England's right now.
Dan, Jimmy G is going to miss at least the next 6 weeks. How likely is it that Jimmy G is the quarterback for the 49ers next year?
I think they'll look elsewhere and decide. See, the way the 49ers set up their contracts, and Jimmy G is no exception, it's rolling year-to-year guarantees, and they don't even really have a trigger that kicks in the next year's guarantee until April 1st. And that's intentional because that's a couple of weeks after the start of free agency. So a team like the 49ers can look at its other options and assess, can we get a guy in free agency or via trade, or how is the draft looking for us before they decide. So, as was the case this year, I heard you guys talk, and they kind of dabbled in the Tom Brady market and decided not to go there. They'll look around at other options again, and it's not crazy to think that they could come back to Jimmy G as their best option. But the way they do their contracts, the way they set up their deals, they definitely allow themselves the option to look at other possibilities at every position, including that one. And, this is a player they've stood behind. They traded a second-round pick for him. They've kind of, put him in an offense that they feel like is suited to him, and they've seen some good things, including a fourth quarter lead in the Super Bowl just a few months ago. But when you look at teams and the quarterback position, they're very often trying to figure out how to sort of elevate the ceiling, right, to get from good to great and allow them to do things that, say, Patrick Mahomes can do with the Chiefs, that win Super Bowls as opposed to just getting there. So that's going to be part of their calculus this offseason as they assess Jimmy Garoppolo and whether he's the guy to get them where they want to go.
Dan, I picked the Minnesota Vikings to win the division at the beginning of the year. Obviously,
I don't think they're going to do it.
Doesn't look like they're going to do it. But you also said that they had the opportunity to make the playoffs. How do you see that?
Look, they're 2-5, and obviously it's going to be tough. But they just beat the first-place team the other day in the Packers, right, with a formula where Dalvin Cook's running all over everybody, and it looks like they want to play. So the question is, are they too far buried? And the point I was trying to make in the overreactions piece yesterday was, 2-5 isn't what it used to be in terms of trouble, right? Because now you have 7 teams per conference making the playoffs starting this year. So if you get hot, if you reel off, 7, 8, 9 wins in a row, as teams sometimes do, then all of a sudden you're back in the mix when it looks like you aren't. Now, they've already started selling off pieces there in Minnesota. Yannick Ngakoue, who was barely there, now shipped off to Baltimore, and you wonder if they're even sort of thinking that way. But I thought it was a worthwhile point to make that a team that in past years might have looked out of it may not be, especially in an NFC where, it might be hard to get to 7 in terms of who you like as far as making the playoffs right now in the NFC. The East is going to have one team, and maybe some people even think shouldn't have that many. And the West is a jumble. The 49ers are kind of a mess with injuries. So, yeah, there are spots. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a team that looks pretty bad at the midpoint kind of make some noise over the second half and have a better chance than they would have had in a previous year.
Speaking of the playoffs, Chris Mortensen reported that the NFL is considering expanding the playoffs to 16 teams. What has been the reaction around the league from people about that news?